man. How are you? Good to see you. Good to see you. Oh, yeah. We're on the radio retread stuff. Good seeing you guys. I can see Debbie. I can see you doing that. Well, good morning and welcome to City Hall. We're going to get started with the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. Mike Keybone is the pastor at Cherokee Hills Baptist Church. He's going to lead us in the invocation. Afterwards, I'll ask Councilman Stonecipher if he'll lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. But would everyone please stand?
Let's pray. Father God, we come to you this morning. God, we thank you for the many blessings that you've given our city. And Lord, this morning we come to you asking you to give wisdom, to give discernment to all of these council members, to the leadership, for Mayor Cornett, that God, you would guide them and lead them in every step of the process of leading our city. Lord, so many blessings, so many things to do, but God, you lead us in all of it. Watch over them, protect them. I pray a blessing on them, and I pray a blessing on our city today. It's in your name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have some events coming up in Oklahoma City. It'll be a reminder, I think, overall that we're going to be spending a lot of time outside over the next few months. Since we didn't really have winter, it's time for us to do that. Let's start with Litter Blitz 2016. So we have our friends from Oklahoma City Beautiful is here. Mother Earth is here. Where's Terry Trashosaurus? I thought Terry...
Spring break.
Spring break. All right. Litter Blitz is our annual effort to remind everyone how important it is to pick up trash around Oklahoma City. And because we have kind of a windy climate around here, sometimes we have to work a little bit harder than everybody else. But that's no excuse. We need to do it. And April is the time of month when Oklahoma City Beautiful reminds us. And so we have a proclamation. I'll ask the clerk to read it.
Whereas litter is a critical factor in our city's economic health, and a clean city reduces taxpayers' costs to remove the litter and attract new businesses. Whereas Oklahoma City Beautiful and the City of Oklahoma City are teaming up for Litter Blitz 2016. Litter Blitz 2016 is an effort to clean up neighborhoods, parks, streets, and businesses to help beautify Oklahoma City. Each neighborhood, civic, church, and business group can register their team to pick up litter on a date they choose. Whereas each team will receive a packet with free trash bags, gloves, and tips for a safe and successful cleanup. And whereas last year over 12,000 volunteers participated in the community cleanup and more than 171,000 pounds of trash were removed from our public spaces. Now therefore, Mick Cornett, the mayor of the city of Oklahoma City, does hereby proclaim the month of April 2016 as Litter Blitz 2016 in Oklahoma City, and he urges all citizens to help combat litter in the parks, schoolyards, neighborhoods, and throughout all areas of our city.
Let's show our appreciation to Oklahoma City Beautiful and the Litter Blitz 2016 effort. And here's Lisa Sinar.
Thank you very much. We encourage all of you to join us for Litter Blitz 2016. We'll have, like it says, 12,000 volunteers out. We're going to kick it off tonight at 4 o'clock with the boys and girls at Memorial Park. So come join us there. And if you would like to register, just go to oklahomacitybeautiful.com and register. We appreciate if you're a group of 1 or 100, we will put you to work. Oklahoma City Beautiful has been picking up litter for 48 years now, and the problem is it keeps coming back. So we need your help, and it really is an amazing way to show the community that you care and how important it is to not throw the litter so you don't have to pick it up. So come join us, and thank you very much for letting us be here today.
You're welcome, and just to review, this is an opportunity for all organizations to be a part of our cleanup effort. So a church organization, a neighborhood association, if you have young people that are involved in a group, this is a good opportunity to teach them civic responsibility and how important it is to have a clean city. And Oklahoma City Beautiful does so many great organizing efforts in this because they will provide the gloves, they will provide the plastic bags, and if you go on their website, ultimately we'll have a new total about how many people were involved this year and how many pounds of trash were cleaned up. But it's throughout the month of April, so you still have time. And you heard Lisa say, go to the oklahomacitybeautiful.com website, and you can sign up. And from there, the interaction with them will be as seamless as it could possibly be. So let's show a round of appreciation one more time for Lisa. Thank you. You bet. Thank you. All right. All right, Liz. You know, where's Liz? Oh, come on up. Bring all, and everybody can come up. Come on up. Yeah, it is National Walking Day, or just around the corner. And if you're thinking you missed it last year, it's because this is the first time we've done National Walking Day. But we are thrilled to be a part of it, and there's a proclamation that the clerk is about to read.
Whereas cardiovascular disease is the leading cause of death in the United States, accounting for 1/3 of all deaths, and stroke is the 5th leading cause of death and leading cause of disability. Whereas the direct and indirect costs of cardiovascular diseases are estimated $316 billion, and obesity is a significant factor driving healthcare spending, regular physical exercise can reduce cardiovascular disease risk and may increase life expectancy. But only 36% of children and 44% of adults get the recommended amount. The American Heart Association recommends that children and adolescents participate in at least 60 minutes of moderate or vigorous intensity physical activity each day, and adults do at least 150 minutes of moderate intensity physical activity or at least 75 minutes of vigorous intensity physical activity, or a combination of both each week. Whereas moderate physical activity has been proven benefits for an individual's overall health, including controlling body weight, blood cholesterol, and blood pressure. And the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention reported that if 10% of Americans began a regular walking program, an estimated $5.6 billion in heart disease costs could be saved. Whereas by providing families and children with safe places to be physically active, we can take steps towards improving heart health and reducing obesity rates. Walking 1 mile to and from school each day is 2/3 of the recommended 60 minutes of physical activity. Studies have reported that people who have parks or recreational facilities nearby exercise more than those who do not have easy access. Studies also indicate that one of the best investments a company can make in its health of its employees is by promoting a culture of physical activity. Corporate America can decrease healthcare costs, increase productivity, and improve the quality of life and longevity of the U.S. workforce. Whereas on National Walking Day, April 6th, the American Heart Association will kick off a month-long campaign to encourage Americans to become and remain more physically active with the help of weekly physical activity themes. These 4 themes focus on walking, recreational sports, outdoor family activities, and stress reduction and mindful movement. Now, therefore, Mick Cornett, the mayor of the city of Oklahoma City, does hereby proclaim April 6th as National Walking Day in Oklahoma City, and along with the American Heart Association, encourages all citizens to take a 30-minute walk and to share their minutes walked on social media with hashtag #AHA Lace Up.
Let's show our appreciation and support for National Walking Day. Rebecca?
Thank you, Mayor Cornett, and thank you, City Council, for recognizing the National Walking Day next Wednesday, April 6th. The American Heart Association and Alliance Health have partnered together, and we are so excited to promote activities in the city that encourage healthy activity as far as physical education, and thank you for all of your support with that. And we'd also like to invite you all to come out to the Heart Walk on April 9th, which is the Saturday after National Walking Day. It's down at the Bricktown Ballpark, and we'd love to invite you all to attend.
And how do people sign up?
They can go to okcheartwalk.org and join, but it's free to come, so just come on down, and we'll see you there.
All right, so again, the ask is to participate in that event on April 9th, but also if they walk on National Walking Day, which is a week from tomorrow, they should use the hashtag, I don't have it in front of me. Oh, you know it by heart.
AHA Lace Up.
AHA Lace Up with a hashtag in front of it. Okay, it would be great if Oklahoma City had a strong performance in drawing attention to physical fitness. It always helps our reputation and certainly helps us get more physically fit. So let's show our appreciation one more time to the American Heart Association. Thank you for leading the effort in this area. Thank you. And next, we have Open Streets. Lori Essery and Phil Maytubby are here with Ken Johnson. We again have a proclamation. I'll ask the clerk to read it.
Whereas the City of Oklahoma City has prioritized the health and well-being of all its residents, and whereas active transportation promotes healthier residents with closer ties to their community. And the more residents who choose active transportation, the greater impact we can have on halting the rise of obesity rates. Whereas Open Streets OKC reclaims part of a busy street for a few hours for non-motorized activity. Everyone attending is invited to walk, bike, skate, or board while they meet local business owners and celebrate the unique charm of an historic Oklahoma City neighborhood. Whereas Oklahoma City County Health Department and its partners are hosting Open Streets OKC from noon to 4 on April 3rd in the Uptown 23rd and Paseo Arts Districts. Whereas events of this scope create lasting, tight-knit neighborhoods across our city. Now, therefore, Mick Cornett, the mayor of the city of Oklahoma City, does hereby proclaim April 3rd as Open Streets OKC Day in Oklahoma City.
Let's show our appreciation for Open Streets Day. And Lori Essery is going to tell us more.
Well, our Open Streets event is this Sunday, April 3rd from noon to 4, and a great tie-in for National Walking Day. You can start early if you come out to Open Streets. It's our biggest event yet. It's our 4th Open Streets. It's our 3rd at Uptown. We are closing the streets from Robinson to Western on 23rd, up Walker to 28th, into the Paseo District, and we're tying into the bike path that already exists on Chartel. All of our vendors are promoting physical activity and highlighting health and wellness, and all of our vendors are 100% free. If you want to eat at the food trucks, of course there's a cost, or shop in the businesses. This is a great event to get people out and moving in our city, and also highlight just the area of the city and show how you can get engaged in your community. So we hope everyone comes out April 3rd, and you can check out our website, openstreetsokc.com. Oh, and I do want to give special recognition to the Oklahoma Arts Council, Out of the Box Theater. They provided 8 free entertainment. Well, they paid for them for our acts for this open streets. We've never had entertainment before. We even have a stilt walker this year. He's a basketball goal. So we're very excited about that. So we've added a lot, and I think everyone will have a great time. So come out and join us.
Great. Those stilt walkers always make me nervous, though. I'm just always concerned they're not going to make that next step. Well, thank you all. And again, this is kind of a theme today. Get outside, pick up trash in Oklahoma City, get outside, get healthier, and congregating with other people in the community and the neighborhoods is always a good idea. And if you can make it down to 23rd Street, all the way up to the Paseo District, be a great time to be out and about in Oklahoma City, and bring your family and friends. And if you have guests in town, they're going to have a good time too. Let's show our appreciation. Thank you. Thanks very much. You bet. Thanks. We're still on page 1 of the council agenda. Item 3 is a couple of appointments. I'll look for a motion. Second. All right. Cast your votes. Passed unanimously. Item 4 is a journal of council proceedings. 4A is to receive the journal for March 22nd. 4B is to approve the journal for March 15th. All right. Is there comments or questions on the journal? All right. Cast your votes. It passes unanimously. And item 5 is request for uncontested continuances.
Mayor, nothing beyond the two that are listed, 9A and 11A.
All right. Any other requests for uncontested continuances? We'll move on to revocable permits then. Item 6A is a request from the Arts Council of Oklahoma City to host the Festival of the Arts, which will be, I guess, 3 weeks from today is when we'll kick that off. Peter DeLisi's here. Good morning. And Gilbert?
Yes.
Yeah. We'll need your name and address for the record for both of you, and then.
Okay. Gilbert Magdaleno, 4009 Northwest 26th Street, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma.
All right, thanks.
And I'm Peter DeLisi, and I live in the Paseo District, 3012 North Lee.
All right, and tell us about what we need to know about the Arts Festival.
Well, like you just said, it's 3 weeks from today. We're pretty excited. And the journey to get to that point has been a long one. We've been working on this for the last couple of years. We're actually moving right over here to be out on your doorstep. We're very excited about that. And it takes a village, really, to build Festival of the Arts. And we really couldn't do it without the incredible support of literally every department within the city of Oklahoma City. They all have to have eyes on the various pieces of this to help us create a safe and productive event that is very inclusive, and everything from every aspect of parking to walking paths to how we're going to be open, what days we close for setup and tear down. Everything is overseen by so many different departments, from the city manager's office to public works to police department, traffic and transportation. Literally everyone is touched within the city, and it's their support that helps make this event really, really work. You can imagine after 30 years of being over in the Myriad Gardens, to then come back here to Bicentennial Park, just how much coordination that takes. It's really remarkable. And every step of the way we've received incredible support with the city. And I just can't begin to tell you how much we appreciate that support.
Yeah, I think it's a good reminder, because Jim, I know you and your staff have been working on getting them the infrastructure to run this event, and you might think it's just a bunch of people that set up and it might take an hour or two to set it up, but we've been working over a year on just getting the site ready for an event of this size, with over 1 million people expected to show up over the week.
Well, just an aside there, we used to, last year we had a 6-week period of time that we worked on setup. We've reduced that down to 10 days so that we can keep this area running over here. You know, this is the heart of the city right here. And in order to do that, we've just had to coordinate on every level. And I think it's going to work. We're pretty excited about it. Be patient with us this first year. It's going to be an interesting process. The streets will actually close on April the 8th, and they'll stay closed through the 29th. Hopefully, we'll be able to get them open very, very shortly after the event is finished. But we have to move in 126 tons of steel, which is kind of an interesting number, and it has to be all platformed and brought out and then disseminated all throughout the grounds. We're the only event of this size that actually flies all the electric. We don't have any cords on the ground anywhere for people to trip on anywhere in the event, which is unlike, well, anything else in the state. It's a remarkably well-orchestrated process, which you've helped us with in every aspect, and we really, really appreciate that.
And if people are unclear exactly where it's located, it's just between Civic Center and City Hall, and Walker is the main north-south street that'll be shut down.
Yes.
And if you're as old as me and remember 30 years ago, this is where we held Festival of the Arts. The first time I ever went, that's where it was. So it'll be nice to kind of have those memories brought back to us.
Well, I'm going to have Gilbert talk to us a little bit. Gilbert's the festival director, and he's going to tell you all about the big party that you're going to come to on opening day.
Okay.
Yes, I'd like to invite you to opening ceremonies, which I believe you and the governor will be speaking at. It's on the west steps of City Hall, Tuesday, April 19th at 11 a.m., and then immediately following is officials luncheon in the Hall of Mirrors, where we provide samples of the food offered at festival.
Okay. And Ed, did you want to say anything?
So in the movement, we spent how much for TIF funds? Like $1 million, $1.5 million?
I don't recall the exact number. I don't know.
Between $1 and $1.5 million of changes to get it to this side. Have all those been completed?
They're not completed yet, but they're still working on it. And we're making good progress, and it will be completed in time for the fest.
And the reason presumably we moved was because of the Clayco development. Now that that's not occurring,
There's more to it
More
than
to
that,
that.
obviously. The
Okay.
modern streetcar had an impact on it. Obviously, the potential development there also had an impact on it.
okay. So you'd anticipate staying at this site from here, I mean, next year and onwards?
We anticipate staying at this site for as long as they'll have us. We love this site.
Okay.
This site is so centrally located in relation to all the businesses that surround this area and all the residential living that now surrounds this area. You've got to remember that a lot of people that work in downtown, there's over 30,000 people that work in downtown Oklahoma City, they get half an hour or maybe an hour for lunch. And their schedules are pretty strict. We want all of those people to be able to come and have a bite to eat at the Arts Festival. And so in this particular location, you can walk out of your business and be here within a couple of minutes.
Okay. So even if the Stage Center site stays empty, you would stay at this site?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, you got it. Also, the modern streetcar is going to go right down Hudson. Well, Hudson was the artist row and really the main focus point of the whole event. And I think the streetcar is going to be running every 20 minutes pretty much all day long. There's just no way. That was the game changer.
Gotcha.
And it's a very important piece of the infrastructure of our city. We totally understand that. But it did give us an opportunity to really take another hard look at the festival. And this is the 50th anniversary for the festival. It's been around for a long time. And once again, we really appreciate how much thought and effort went into the planning. This wasn't the only location that was looked at for the festival. There were several locations. And there were several locations within the Myriad Gardens that were very seriously considered, all the way down to creating schematics to see how it was going to work. But there are other streets involved with the Myriad Gardens that also have activities going on that time of year that can be somewhat problematic, depending on, well, it's problematic in a good way. If the Thunder gets into the playoffs, of course, that creates a lot of congested scenarios over on the Robinson side, which would have been the natural place to move some of the things for festival. And it would have made it very difficult to do that event in conjunction with some of the other activities that currently go on in downtown during that particular time of April.
Great. Thank you. Good luck.
All right. How about a motion then to approve the revocable permit request? All right. Cast your votes. Passed unanimously. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
You bet. See you in 3 weeks. Item 6B is a revocable permit from the Oklahoma City County Health Department. This is to hold the Open Streets OKC event that we just heard more about, or we just heard about. And they're back.
We're back.
Okay. Any comments or questions from council? All right, how about a motion then, and we'll move this forward. All right, cast your votes. It passes unanimously. Thank you all. And item 6C is a revocable permit request from the University of Oklahoma's Community Health Alliance to hold the OU-CHA Health Dash. This event, if approved, will be on April 2nd. Garrett Waller is here. Morning, Garrett. We'll need your name and address for the record.
My name is Garrett Waller, and my address is 101 Northeast 53rd Street, apartment 3514.
Okay, and tell us about the Health Dash.
So this is the 7th annual running of our Health Dash, and it will be on the Health Sciences Center campus on Saturday, April 2nd, so you have time to go from here to the open streets on the 3rd. And it's benefiting the Good Shepherd Clinic, which provides health care to the uninsured in Oklahoma City. And it will begin with a fun run at 9 a.m. and then a 5K at 9:30.
All right, this event is in Ward 7. John, you okay with this?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move for approval.
All right, cast your votes. Passes unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Garrett. And finally, a revocable permit from Rugged Races LLC to hold the Rugged Maniac 5K. Is anyone here representing this event? All right. John, you want the Maniacs in Ward 7 on April 30th?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move for approval.
All right, cast your votes. It passes unanimously. I'll recess the council meeting, convene as the Oklahoma City Municipal Facilities Authority. 2 items today. Is there a motion on the MFA? All right, cast your votes. It passes unanimously. We'll adjourn the OCMFA, convene as the Oklahoma City Public Property Authority. It's like 5 items here. All right, cast your votes on the PPA. It passes unanimously. We'll adjourn the OCPPA, convene as the Oklahoma City Environmental Assistance Trust. Just the claims and payroll today. All right, cast your votes. It passes unanimously. We'll adjourn the OCEAT and reconvene the council meeting with the consent docket. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any individual considerations? Yeah, Mark.
Item number 7T.
S and AD like Delta.
L. All right, Mark, you want to get started?
I'll try. I'm moving a little slow, sorry. I just wanted to highlight item 7T, which is a joint economic development agreement with the Economic Development Trust and Paycom Software. Paycom is located at 7501 West Memorial Road, which is in Ward 8. And I'm happy to announce that the company's expanding, and it's anticipated that there will be an additional 667 positions available with that expansion. And what I'm more excited to announce is that 170 of those 667 positions will be offered in 2015. So if you're looking for a job, there's some bright news, and I'd like to thank Paycom for expanding in Ward 8.
That is good news. All right, Ed, S and AD.
I guess just wanted, there's been some concern expressed in the community about maybe the timing with Severn Trent, and I understand that they are a multinational corporation and they have a lot of moving parts, and that some of the concerns in Hugo dealt with drinking water as opposed to wastewater treatment, which we're doing here. But it seems like, I mean, it was the largest fine in DEQ history. I think it was $3 million, and then maybe they settled for $1 million, but it's the largest in the state's history. And this comes on the heel of that, and it just seems like a lot of the DEQ's findings weren't necessarily specific to drinking water. It had to do with inadequate record keeping and substandard sampling practices, and just basically went to management. So it seems like you could have some concerns regardless of whether it's drinking water or wastewater. And maybe Pete, could you just give us I mean, I didn't hear what happened at the water utility, so I'm not,
I can
Go ahead.
A couple, three things that I think would need to be pointed out. One is that this is a large contract, and when those people competed for it, we had three of the largest firms in the country, or internationally, compete for it: Severn Trent, Sage-Tuam Hill, Veolia. All international firms, each that have hundreds, if not thousands, of contracts each. So they all have some warts out there, just because of the volume of work that they do and the technical aspect of those, both on the water side and on the wastewater side of it. But let's go specifically to Severn Trent and the issues that happened down at Hugo. There's really two things that happened down there. One was a magnesium breakout that turned the water a dark color because of a natural heavy rainfall event that happened down there. That didn't happen only in Hugo. It happened in other communities down in that area when that happened. It was probably worse in Hugo because of some of the reasons, because of the age of the infrastructure and their inability to treat it. It also happened in Atoka. Matter of fact, the city of Oklahoma City sent staff down to assist Atoka through that same process when they were having similar things. So that happened through there. And you know, part of it was because they didn't react to it maybe as quickly as they should have. Some of it was some of the infrastructure and the treatment facilities not readily available to treat magnesium as they went forward. The second issue had to do with the testing of disinfectant byproducts. Disinfectant byproducts are what happens when you chlorinate water. One of the, hands down, one of the most significant health benefits in the history of time is chlorinating water. When we chlorinate water, byproducts happen. When you're taking, you're killing these things in the water, and so there's some byproducts that are out there. Disinfectant byproducts have not always been regulated. They've been regulated, I don't know, 25 years maybe, Marcia, and they weren't regulated when I first was director of the water department. And it's a carcinogen that has long-term health effects. And it's difficult because of the water changes and the disinfectant byproducts change. It's a difficult process. The fact of the matter is they did not test that, do the due diligence that they needed to on that. It was a breakdown with one individual down there. Councilman White, Marcia Slaughter, and I have personally met with Severn Trent. We've gone through their quality control plans, the management changes that they've made. We're pretty comfortable that the changes they've made will be strong. We will clearly monitor it very closely, and we think that it's that they've corrected those issues, and we'll have a successful project in Oklahoma City.
it seems like there were also like vegetation growing in areas that they weren't supposed to be, and I mean, the DEQ would recognize all those factors and decided to levy the largest fine in the state's history. And a lot of that was based on, I mean, you're indicating that there were
You're correct.
deficiencies.
It was a large fine. You know, I'm glad that about 10 years ago I got to the point, because every month I used to sign under penalty of law on the water permits. Now I haven't been water director for over 15 years. I think the statute of limitations has run on those. But you know, when I signed those permits every month, I was trusting on my people to do the work as they got on down the line. And one person who didn't do things quite the way they should have can impact those type of things.
But then you have to have management that catches those things and check. I mean, when it's people's health on the line, you can't put all your eggs in one person's. It seems like that's the role of management, is to have checks and balances.
I think that's where they made some of their changes as they've gone down. They've really done a full quality assurance evaluation, just not with that project, but throughout their organization.
Okay.
I take very seriously being chairing the Water Trust. It's something I've done for virtually all my political life, and I take it very seriously. We spent a lot of time in public conversations with Severn Trent and private conversations with them, public and private conversations with staff. You know, it's the kind of a business when you do what they do and you treat what they treat, it's pretty difficult to maintain a spotless record. It's just part of we've had problems here in Oklahoma City. We've never had a fine of that magnitude, but we've had fines in our operation here. It just happens. And we looked at the three bids. All three companies are international companies. I suspect if you research the history of all three of them, you'd find problems that they've encountered. Some of them have been handled very well, some of them haven't been handled as well as others. They were the only bidder that met the specifications exactly from in the opening bid that we had. They were the lowest bid by some $300,000. They understand. They're here today. I see Mr. White here, who's going to be the manager of it, and they're here today to be asked questions if anybody feels the need to do that. I used the phrase at the Water Trust meeting that it's a step of faith at this point. Not because I'm not confident they can do the job, but because of the very things that you're talking about, Ed. It's just the situation today adds a little bit of heat to the decision. But I don't think that's a good reason not to select them. The previous contractor's done a good job for a long time, but they're in the middle of a controversy right now over land application. It's just part of the nature of treating water and wastewater and dealing with the sludge aspects of it and all that you're going to have concerns. It's not an easy contract. It's one of the reasons why it costs so much. It's not an easy task. But when we vote on this at the Water Trust, I think we each look at it from the standpoint, especially in this case, that we feel like we've done everything we can to make a good decision for the city. And it didn't come without some concern, but I was in support of it at the trust level, and I'll vote for it today too.
All right. Ed, you also wanted to speak on AD?
No, there's just really not so much the Wellness Center, but maybe the Atlas contract on the Expo Center, which I wasn't aware of some of the difficulties. And I was wondering if Todd could maybe just give a quick summary, specifically so there was a story on Thursday that talked about your report to the Wellness Committee, and then on Friday they outlined 10 different complaints that you had, and then Atlas responded to those 10. So I'm just wondering maybe what your thoughts are on those responses and where we go from here and what the timeline looks like for the Expo Center.
Well, we stand by the attachment that's on the back of the resolution, that's attached with the resolution that outlines the issues that we're having out there. As far as the responses by the contractor in the paper, I don't know if it's appropriate for me to respond to those, other than we don't agree with what he said in the paper.
On any of the 10?
Any of them.
Okay. That's all you have to say. But how about going from here? In terms of timeline?
As far as the Expo building?
Yes.
Well, we're working with the contractor closely. Not only are we having the weekly construction meetings that our project managers are having, but we're also having every other week meeting with the owner of the company, and we're working through some things. We think we will get where we need to be, but it's just taking some time.
Any chance we'd be ready for the State Fair or no?
Right now their schedule shows that they're going to be done in August. I think Mr. O'Toole has to make a tough decision on whether he believes that's going to happen or whether or not, what shape it'll be. I think we're pretty sure that the outside will be, well, I think that the outside will be complete, and you won't know that there's construction. It's going to be in a pretty good place. There's a reasonable, I'm not sure if reasonable, Mr. Mize wouldn't agree with the term reasonable, but there's a possibility that they'll meet that schedule and it'll be done in August. We don't have much flexibility. We're down to kind of down to the wire on it at this point. Okay. I think Tim O'Toole's going to be, I'm sure he'll use this for some purpose if it's ready to go, but the fact of the matter is I don't think he's willing to book major things in there with the possibility that it won't be ready to go.
Okay.
Right. James, you want to speak on L, and then Larry? Or you want to speak on that event, Larry, on that?
I just want to make a comment. I happened to have the opportunity to sit in on the Oversight Committee meeting Thursday morning where this was brought up to Tom McDaniel's committee. David was there, and the gentleman from Atlas came and made a few comments, And upon listening to the comments, I did not hear anything that concerned me as far as changing the decision that's made here to switch to the next bidder. That was just my personal opinion on listening to it there. Thank you, Your Honor.
Mayor, I did have just a question for David. Do we think that will delay the process to make this switch?
For the Wellness Center?
Yes.
No, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Quick question. This relates to the general contractor. I know there's been some problems dealing with this contractor, especially in my ward, when it has come to street repairs and different things where they actually this is not the company? Okay, I'm sorry. I'm thinking of another company that we had major problems with, but I'm good, thank you.
Okay. James?
Yeah, L is an item that we repaving some residential streets to two different areas in Ward 1. I just wanted to compliment the city staff and our contractor because I haven't received one call or email over it, and that says to me that we were doing a good job. So I just wanted to point that out.
All right, thanks. All right, ready to vote the consent docket?
Do you mind, can we vote on S separately, please?
Sure. I'll take the motion that's in place then to exclude S, if that's okay with everybody. All right, so this is the motion without item S. Cast your votes. Passed unanimously. And is there a motion on item S?
Move it.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second on item S, and it passes 6-2. All right, we're on to the concurrence docket. Is there a motion from the council?
Not me. Not me. I've got some skin in the game.
Okay, is there a second? All right, we have a motion and a second on the concurrence. John?
Mr. Mayor, if I would, on 8-7, can I get after this meeting more information about A?
Which one?
8A.
8A, okay. And
that's relating to FD Moon Elementary School.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions on the concurrence docket? All right, cast your votes. It passes unanimously. Item 9 are items that require a separate vote. The first is a zoning case in Ward 2, and this item's been deferred, has it not? Okay, it's been deferred until April 5th. So 9A has been deferred. Item 9B is a purchasing agreement, and do we have the bids in yet?
We do not.
Okay. So we need to hold up on voting on item B1 and 2, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And C, and is C also?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we'll kind of move past item 9B and C and come back to those. Item 9D is a public hearing today, and this regards our impact fees. We have some people that have signed up to speak. Council okay with me asking the people that want to sign up to speak to come forward? Okay. Doug Tapp.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. My name is Doug Tapp. Business is at 605 Northwest 13th here in the city. We appreciate the time that you've allowed us to analyze the impact fees. We were in here a couple of months ago, and you were gracious enough to give that a delay. I can tell you that between a few of us, we've spent numerous hours looking at other cities, other areas of the country to see what those cities are doing, what kind of fees they have in relationship to what's been proposed. And what I've handed out is kind of a snapshot of the cities that we've been able to gather data from. We reached out to 15 cities, and we've kind of given a snapshot here on this sheet of what we've found. You can see we've reached out to Colorado Springs, Tulsa, Indianapolis, Columbus, Nashville, and the ones that are listed, we looked at Jacksonville, couldn't get much response there, in Kansas City, Kansas. And what we've gathered, and you can see on the bottom, is we basically looked at it like a builder developer would be going into that city and building a 100,000 square foot either office/retail or a warehouse. And I've approached those cities with a request of what kind of fees those would generate, the builder and or developer. And you can see, in Oklahoma City, the proposed fees that the impact ordinance would have on an office would be $123,000, or a warehouse $123,000, and office retail $232,000. And when you look at that compared to the cities that we've interviewed, for a warehouse, that's about 3.4 times what those cities average that we've calculated come up with, and for an office building, almost 4.5 times. And I know that you guys were generous enough to meet with some of us last week. I know there's been a lot of questions on how we have come up with our data versus how city staff came up with our data, and we're very thankful for staff for spending the time that they have with some of our representatives so far. And I know that you guys challenged us to get together with staff and come up with kind of a look at the data to where we could get our group's assumptions and the city staff assumptions more in line. We haven't quite got there yet, and I know that a few of the guys that are going to be speaking after me have spent a lot of time with staff and a lot of time with some of council to try to get more in line with what we're looking at. But we have concerns when we're reaching out to these fellow cities and we're getting information that would lead us to believe that Oklahoma City's proposed fees would be substantially larger than our surrounding cities or like populated cities. That gives us concern. I represent some of the largest general contractors in the state, and I know that my feedback from our group is they're worried that the proposed fees would negatively impact the development in Oklahoma City and therefore negatively impact their businesses. So that's we've had it for 60 days. I know that staff's been working on it for quite a few months, but that's our first snapshot of a national look. And I know that a couple of the gentlemen after me will be dialing in a little bit more detail on certain cities and what we have found. So again, thank you for your time. We would again love to have a little bit more time to meet with city staff and figure out what the difference is on some of these assumptions. But we kind of ran out of time in our 60 days.
All right, Doug, thanks.
Thanks, Mayor.
Your Honor, can I ask a question?
Sure.
In my opinion, the comparability of these proposed rates to other cities is an important factor in my decision as to voting yes or no. And I struggle as to understand why the two groups, staff and the group of developers, cannot come to an agreement as far as the comparability. I'm not asking to come to an agreement as to whether or not the proposed amounts are correct or fair, but just how do we compare with the other cities? And so just to make this process a little bit more efficient, I would propose we not hear any further people coming forward and say, well, here's my numbers, and suggest that the staff and whoever wants to from this group of developers get together, contact 5 cities together, and get an agreement at least on what the comparability is as far as the fees that other cities are assessing. That's all I'm asking. We're now forced, if we progress to decide, well, who's telling us the right story? I think each of us could do our own research. Now, it's going to extend the time frame if that's what we want to do. I think a simpler solution would be for the staff and the developers to get on the phone, call the appropriate person at the cities, the assistant city manager or somebody, and say, here's what we've got. We've got 3 examples. For example, a retail center, 10,000 square feet, I don't care. An office building, a warehouse building, 50,000 feet. Let's agree to the items we want to compare, and let's agree on the cities. When we spoke last week, I thought we were going to add Jacksonville, which you attempted to get, as well as Phoenix, and then supplement those 2 with whatever cities the 2 groups think would be appropriate to include. But to listen to a group of individuals to come forward and say the same thing, we don't agree with their numbers, they don't agree with ours, I don't know how effective or efficient that is. So I would just propose that if anybody just wants to come forward and say, we don't agree with the other side's numbers, I understand that. And then I just ask that the 2 groups to get together, and however long it takes to make those phone calls, 5, 6 phone calls. Both parties be together on a conference call, hear the same information, and then walk away saying, yes, we're in agreement now that these comparable figures are accurate. That's all I'm asking.
David, I just don't think you're going to get agreement because every city does it differently, and they attribute different ways of determining fees that they're going to place on the shoulders of developers. I just don't think it's apples to apples in any of these cases.
Well, now, okay, then I don't understand this process then, because I would want them to say, what are the total fees that the city, the municipality is going to charge to construct this type of structure? That's all I'm asking for, whether it's something that we call an impact fee or some other kind of fee, and that's all I'm saying. What does it cost? What does a city charge to allow a developer to construct this facility? And when they're all on the same phone call together, they've got to be able to say, okay, here's where I think those numbers may not be accurate, and let the parties just come to an agreement instead of us trying to decide, well, who's right and who's wrong.
Can I ask a question? So
Yes, sir.
in 2012, there was a survey done by Duncan Associates, and they presumably do this all over the country, and they came up with some numbers that we're relying on. Are you disputing the findings of the Duncan Associates group?
I haven't analyzed that one.
Okay.
I know that, the cities that I called personally, I ask like I'm a contractor. I'm asking city staff, if I'm coming in, I'm building a 100,000 square foot warehouse.
Right.
What's going to be my cost to get through the planning, get through whatever fees you've got before I can develop my building?
Do you
make that same call as a different type of person, you might get a different answer. Or if you don't drill past the first person you talk to, it just points you to a website.
But do you see, so if I'm a policymaker, on one hand, I've got staff who's presenting a study by Duncan Associates, a firm that does this as a business. Mm-hmm. And on the other hand, I have commercial developers who definitely have a stake in the game, who are saying, we're picking up the phone and making phone calls ourselves, and we're getting different numbers, and then I'm getting emails that are showing some problems with the methodology.
I think it's all in the ask. It's like Mr. Greenwell said, have the parties there, ask the person the same kind of questions so everybody can listen to the answer.
But I kind of need to know if you have a problem with the findings of this firm. Is that a yes? Okay. All right.
Okay. We have several people that want to speak.
The one thing I'd just say quickly, and I agree with David's comments, and the one thing that sticks out in my mind, Your Honor, is that in looking last night at this chart on 100,000 square foot offices and warehouses, the fees just don't tie. If you look at Nashville, Indianapolis, Charlotte, their fees are dramatically lower than what's represented for Oklahoma City, Fort Worth, and Colorado Springs. And that must be attributable to other funding sources. They can't have their fees that much lower and build the infrastructure that they built in Nashville and Indianapolis and Charlotte. And so there's some confusion there in my mind. And the other thing that jumps out at me that I have some concern about is Mr. Odom was kind enough to send me an email that talks about the common area maintenance leases for large commercial tenants. And what jumped out at me was it says the following items shall not be included in the calculation of the landlord common area maintenance cost, any impact or development fees. And so I'm concerned about our developers. I'm concerned about what these lease provisions will have on their viability for building in Oklahoma City. My goal is I want everybody to keep building in Oklahoma City, and I want to grow our sales tax revenue. But I do have the same concerns David has, and I have the concern about this lease language.
Okay. And I also have some concerns. I really think this should be deferred for 2 weeks.
Okay, well, we have a lot of people that want to speak, so can we move on and let them
Yeah,
hear
I think
before
we
we start commenting?
I think we have to let them speak as much as it's going to be a waste of time to hear them because they're not going to be talking about the same numbers. I think we're obligated to let them speak.
Okay.
My concern is this, though. It seems to me the residential people have agreed on something that's just as complicated as the commercial side. They've agreed that you can determine what the relative comparison is and use the same number. The reason I think commercial people haven't done that is because they didn't get started trying to do it until about a month ago. This has been going on for a year and a half, lots and lots and lots of meetings, at which time the commercial people's attitude was, we don't want any increase. We're opposed to any increase. And so if you don't participate in the process, then they're actually winning today by having it so complicated we have to postpone the process. So I think it's time to quit this back and forth stuff and get involved in it, because the residential people found a way to do it. It seems to me that proves it's not impossible to do what David's asking, and I think we need to get on with it. This is something that we were right. We almost had it done several years ago, and the commercial people and the residential people joined them and went to the legislature and changed the whole method for doing it. With this legislature, maybe the best thing to do is wait till after the legislature's over so we won't get preempted again the way we did the last time. But I'm ready to get on with it. There is a cost in development that is passed on to people that don't profit by it. And it's time we face that and move forward. I agree with Mark. I don't want to do something to harm development. But on the other hand, I don't know that somebody that doesn't profit by it ought to be a contributor to it. And the way this system is now, that's what's happening. And we need to find a way to fix it.
I just want to ask, maybe Jim can answer this for me. This will help me understand as we hear all the speakers. When we're talking about these comparable cities, Oklahoma is the only state that doesn't allow municipalities to draw from property tax to pay for operations.
That's correct.
So would that impact this? I mean, we can't, I mean, you get the development, you get property tax growth in other cities, and then they get to pull on that property tax for their operations. Here we don't. So how does that?
That's a big question. Because there's so many factors involved, Councilman. Some cities get revenue sharing back from the state that they can use. We don't get any revenue sharing back from the state of Oklahoma. And I doubt that we will this year either. I know that we won't this year. The property taxes is the common way to do that. So the property taxes generally come back to help in those type of operations. We don't get property taxes here for operations. We all know that. That's another factor that lies in. There's just different mechanisms in different cities and how they do that. There impact fees, there are a lot of cities out there that have impact fees. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But what we've tried to come in from a big picture is come up with a partial, I want to make sure it's very clear, a partial recovery of some of the development costs that are out there. And what we've come back to is a amount that equates to about 1%. Not exactly 1%, but it's about 1%. It's more, it's less, depending on how you look at your property. And I just want to make sure we're clear about that's where we're coming down. So if you've got a office property out there that you're leasing for $25 out there, 1% of that would be 25 cents 25 cents, but that's if all of the debt were put into the lease rate. Obviously, there's taxes and there's security and there's utilities and there's other O&M costs on that, so it would be much less than that 25 cents. It might be somewhere in the range. You'd be increasing your rates from $25 to $25.15 or $25.20, somewhere in that range.
So at a minimum, the fact that we don't draw property tax, or we don't get property tax from this development, would make some of these comparisons with the other cities not necessarily apples to apples.
Yeah, it depends how you want to evaluate it. That would be one way to look at it. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Ed, if I may just respond to that comment, it's an excellent point. And we can take that into our consideration when we evaluate, whether or not we should go forward with this. But I still don't understand why we can't get the dollars, the amount that you have to write a check for, to each one of these different municipalities to construct that facility that we're using as an example. Again, I understand your point, and it's a very well taken point, but yet I still think we've got to be able to come to an agreement, both sides, to say, this is how much I have to write a check for to this municipality to construct this facility. That's all I'm asking, is that the two sides come to an agreement on that question. And then we could factor in those other items, such as, well, they're drawing real estate or ad valorem taxes, and they use that to absorb the cost of that facility. I understand that, and I'll accept that as an item that we have to weigh, but all I'm asking is that the two sides come together with the same amount, an agreement as to how much they have to write the check for. That's all I'm asking.
If I could clarify one thing too, that we were asking about, property tax, use for property tax for operations. We don't have that available to us. That does affect our ability to be able to maintain, we could use property tax for operations to help maintain the streets, but we do have property tax absolutely for the capital improvements that we do receive from commercial property as well as residential. So there's definitely a contribution towards capital improvements that we do receive on property tax.
All right, Doug, thanks. Brent Lowell. Morning, Brent. We'll need your name and address for the record.
Brent Lowell, 6901 Northwest 63rd. I appreciate the opportunity for due process in our government. Before I get started, I'll let those get passed around. Mr. Couch, I wouldn't drive down here for 25 cents increase. So I'm going to get to that, but 25 cents wouldn't be worth our efforts, and I don't think you'd have a group of us here for over 25 cents. Mr. White, I appreciate your aggressiveness here. However, I don't feel like shoving this through today is fair due process for the amount of time that we've put in to come to terms with city staff. I understand that Oklahoma City's hands are tied when it comes to revenue sources. That's nobody here. That's nobody's here's fault. However, I have a problem with a 600% impact or permitting fee increase without exploring or going and seeking out additional revenue sources, whether it's ad valorem, whether it's fuel, whether it's sales tax. We go through a permitting process on every project we build, and it is a rigorous, time-consuming, months-long process. So for the city to refuse to explore other revenues, other avenues for revenues, is wrong, and I'm willing to participate in whatever steps or whatever level you would accept in exploring those other avenues. What I've passed out here are an example of construction of cost to build a permitting and impact fees to build a 100,000 square foot office building in Oklahoma City compared to the 4 surrounding municipalities. As you can see, Oklahoma City is fairly even with Moore and Norman, and Edmond has got us by, I don't know, 40% or something. I'd like to point out in Moore, of the $39,000, 25,000 of that is an impact fee. That's 25-cent impact fee on a 100,000 square foot building. So if you look at our current scenario, Oklahoma City would come in at about 33,000. The proposed increase in impact fees would drive us to over 230,000 for the same building. So I'm having a hard time equating that to a 25-cent increase. But this 100%, 600, 700% increase in our permitting cost is a stifling amount. And in our understanding, or what we've been told, is that this is going to only generate about $6 to $7 million, about enough to widen a 1.5 miles worth of roads here. So, my proposal, or what I would ask is, let's do it right, or let's not do it all. Let's explore other revenue sources, and if it takes a year, if it takes 2 years, let's do it right. The correct way would be the equitable way. We've got Oklahoma City proper has got somewhere around 600,000 people. However, the metro, we're at about 1.3 million. And a vast portion of that 1.3 million come through Oklahoma City. They dine here, they buy fuel here, they shop here, they spend money here, but none of the collected sales tax or fuel tax dollars they spend here stay here. So they use our roads, which is great. We want their money, but we also need to be able to maintain our infrastructure, and that needs to be collected from people that are using our city streets. So, any questions?
No. Thanks, Brent. Sean Rieger? What am I keeping them?
Thank you, Your Honor. Sean Rieger at 136 Thompson Drive in Norman. And I'm an attorney advocating on behalf of the Central Oklahoma Home Builders Association. I think you will actually hear a little bit of the difference, as Councilmember White suggested, when you hear our comments versus the commercial group. And we certainly respect and honor their positions on this matter. We are a different group in that, and I would say it's often said in real estate, there's an old phrase that that commercial follows rooftops. Perhaps it's the same in this debate, and perhaps it's the same in your considerations as well. It is without rooftops of the residential builders that I represent, there would be no commerce. It is the fundamental core of what we are growing in a community, is the rooftops and the residences and the individuals that choose to call your city home. We've been at the table with you a very long time. In fact, the home builders associations have a long history with your government in this discussion. It was indeed, as Councilmember White said, it was the Oklahoma State Home Builders Association that came and worked with you through the state legislature for 3 different sessions. We went through that process to finally come to the new development fee impact statute that was passed by the state legislature. I know Mr. Keith, your council of your city attorney's office, and I worked endlessly till we finally came to a compromise that worked, and it passed the legislature. And it's with that vehicle that we are here today, through this ordinance, that now allows for this to be discussed and introduced. And it is at the very inception of this discussion that we were with you again, this time through the Central Oklahoma Home Builders Association and COBA, who I represent, that we came to the table with you at the onset to discuss these provisions. And so I think what you will hear from me today is a very different discussion than what you will hear from the commercial developers, in that we are down to the nuts and bolts. And what I've put in front of you is the nuts and bolts. Now, certainly if there's a re-entry of discussion as to fees, we will certainly be a part of that discussion. But at this point, after almost 2 years of working together with you and your staff from the home builder residential side, we're prepared to finalize out the final few points, and you have them in front of you. And we've been doing that with staff behind the scenes extensively for a number of months now. It's my understanding that staff has come to terms with us on these points that are in front of you, and that there's draft language ready to support, introduce, and pass. I think we're down to one point that we're still discussing. I do want to very quickly itemize these so that you will understand what the points are that we're down to. After about a 30-page ordinance, we're down to these items from the residential side. And we appreciate that very much, that you've worked with us that closely to get there. Under the parks matters, we are down to simply items that we want to make sure that we don't have to put up subdivision bonds at the outset for new parks. We agree, certainly, we have an obligation to provide those when we say we're going to provide them, but it is too much and onerous for us to put up additional financing and funding through bonding at the start, so we've asked for staff to allow us to simply, at the completion of 50% of lots, do it at that point if we haven't done it yet. And it's my understanding staff is agreeable to that. As to swimming pool and splash pads, the current draft in front of you would require a capacity of 10% of the population. That is really quite enormous. We want to go down to 1%, and it's, again, my understanding that staff is welcome to that. There's a paragraph, we call them the paragraph M's in your ordinance. It's under traffic and parks, and is really double dipping. If you read it verbatim, it says that nothing here precludes you from extracting more and more and more from us. We think that's onerous and unacceptable. It's our position, it needs to be stricken from the parks. I understand, again, that staff is agreeable to that. We also want a provision that says that if we've already built a park, that we can have that qualified as our parks solution. We simply have to go through somewhat of an inspection process to make sure it meets your requirements. And again, we understand staff is listening and agreeable to that. There's another paragraph under traffic that basically says you could extract more and more from us as to certain things, particularly traffic lights. We're working right now with Mr. Keith to make sure that we have some language that doesn't, again, double dip. We understand the purpose of the ordinance. We don't want to go beyond that in terms of funding. And finally, there are issues as to delayed implementation. We want to make sure that we have a path forward with our customers so that we don't immediately have to extract additional funds, but that we have perhaps a 6-month or some delay before it's implemented, that we can discuss it with our customers. Lastly, when there are increases in the future, we simply ask that we have due process of a hearing and a vote with you. The current draft speculates an administrative increase. It's not relevant to have that in the sense that we have economies that change all the time. We need to have the ability to come in front of you and tell you what's happening to our economies, what's happening to our businesses, so that at the moment of the increase, we can discuss it, have a rational discussion, and decide whether it's a good time to do that or not. I again implore you to understand that we've been with you for years, a long time, as residential developers. We've worked very closely. We're ready to complete it and do it with you instructing staff to make sure that we've cleared up these final few items. With that, I thank you very much for your time and appreciate your effort.
All right.
Excuse me.
Yes.
If I heard you correctly, you said there's one item that you still don't have draft language. Which one is that?
The one item, Councilmember, is paragraph N. If you look on my sheet there, it's under streets and parks. There is a paragraph under M that says nothing precludes the city basically from requiring us to donate, dedicate, capital improvements, install, et cetera, as to 3 items. And the one particularly that concerns us greatly is traffic lights. That's a very expensive item. It's our position, frankly, that the residential neighborhoods don't typically cause a requirement for traffic lights. It typically is a commercial issue when you have it in a congested area of commerce. We want to make sure that the residential developers are not extracted further on that position.
Mayor and Council, Craig Keith in the Municipal Council's office. I've been in discussions with Mr. Rieger, and we understand their concern. We're looking to create a mechanism that would address their concern. There are some limited circumstances where a traffic study would indicate that a particular development would cause a need for an additional traffic light, not that that we're intending to address through the development fees, not an arterial, but an additional one. And so we're trying to find the language to create a mechanism wherein if a traffic study indicated that a particular development created a particular need for a traffic light, that could also be required. their concern, of course, is to make sure that that is fairly implemented so that they're not paying for development fees for lights plus being required to put in lights. And we're trying to find mutually agreeable language on that issue.
Would you agree that we're in agreement on all these other?
Yes, I've worked with Mr. Rieger, and I've bounced the ideas off of staff, and we've gone through his list. He was very cooperative. He gave us this list back when we had the Planning Commission meeting, and we have a mechanism addressing their issue regarding the subdivision performance bonds. They offered us another mechanism, and so I melded some language that I have prepared upon your direction that would permit us to both utilize the vehicle they gave us, but also have the bond should they be choosing. So there'd be a choice of mechanisms to make sure that the park is built. I have talked to Mr. Doug Cupper, and we agreed that the 1% is a good number for the pools and the splash pads. On AM, AM is permitted by the statute, but is not appropriate or necessary for the park situation. So in the Chapter 38, Section M, we looked at deleting that, and that was our recommendation to staff. We had also talked about grandfathering in, because we have a mechanism wherein if the developer puts in a local park, that helps to relieve some of the stress on our need for regional and local parks, that if they put those in, that they would get a credit. Some of the developers are already in the process of putting in those local parks, and so we want to tie them into that same mechanism because it achieves the same purpose. So we have to add a separate Section U to do that. If the development fee is phased in a longer process, probably most of those will already be put in and it will resolve itself. But just in case, we draft some language that would make it equivalent to the credit that we're already offering. On the issue of the implementation phase-in, we're looking for recommendations from council to give us some guidance on that issue. And on the issue of the hearing, I would recommend that as part of our budget process that we have a hearing, because under the statute that Mr. Rieger and I helped to draft, we already have a requirement for an annual reporting to you as to how much development fees were collected and how they've been administrated. And so probably as part of that process, we could also look at that number, and should the council decide to change direction, then we would bring an ordinance back around. So we've been working with them on that as well. So that just left the issue of the traffic light. They were agreeable. They understand the issue regarding when developers have to put in sidewalks or if a particular development needs a turning lane, but the traffic light was a particular concern for them, and so we're looking for a trigger that ties to traffic study.
So will all those amendments be on our agenda next week?
With your permission, I will present those to you for the next agenda.
Okay.
Yes.
Thanks. Thanks, Sandy.
Thank you.
Sean, thank you. Bart Benning.
Hello, I'm Bart Benning, 11900 North Pennsylvania, Suite AA. I'm the president of the Central Oklahoma Commercial Association of Realtors, an affiliate of the National Association of Realtors. The NAR has a policy generally opposing impact fees. Where impact fees exist, NAR urges their repeal. When used, impact fees should be segregated from other government funds and used only for capital expenditures on specific new projects. Shortly after this impact fee ordinance was introduced, we asked NAR to commission a study of the proposed ordinance. The resulting memorandum was distributed to city staff on February 15th. The memorandum identifies several potential issues of the ordinance's compliance with the Oklahoma state statutes as well as U.S. Supreme Court decisions. The potential deficiencies were addressed in the forms of questions to the city attorney. City attorney declined to answer any of our questions, noting that his duty was only to city staff and city council. That being said, we respectfully suggest that the city council proceed only if they have received assurances that the proposed ordinances satisfy the U.S. Supreme Court's Nolan-Dolan dual nexus test, both in terms of the way the ordinance is structured and its fee structures. Another issue of concern is the impact fees zones look very similar to improvement districts as defined by the Oklahoma statutes. Since improvement districts can only be created with the consent of 50% of the property owners in a district, the question becomes, does the city have the authority to, in effect, waive property owners' rights in the creation of these impact fee assessment districts? The rest of the memorandum dealt with some best practices and suggestions to the planning director, and these, for the most part, were included in additional memorandum from the planning department to city staff, and we appreciate that. In the future, we look forward to working ways with the city on developing ways to diversify its funding away from sales tax and for other sources. We believe that the sales tax should be used primarily for operating expenses, and capital expenditures should be funded with ad valorem taxes, with streets being funded by some combination of automobile tax, fuel tax. Thank you.
Thanks, Bart. Mark Ruffin? Morning, Mark.
Good morning. Mark Ruffin, 227 Northwest 16th Street. I'm here to not even talk about whether these impact fees are good or bad, but to talk to your question first, David, is that we would respectfully ask the city or that you guys would grant the staff the leeway to work with us for another 30 days. I know it sounds like we are pushing things off. We have no interest in having this drag on. We really want this resolved. I needed to have it resolved. We needed to have it resolved. We need to get back to work. We've had some conversation with city managers, some conversation with city staff. We've come to a general, I think, framework of two of our members to meet with two of the staff members to establish the framework by which we would all agree or is the reference point. Number one, permit data. You know, are we all using the same permit data, the number of square footages that the city is permitting? For example, the city has maintained, or not maintained, but suggested that the permit fees that have been proposed would raise about $6.7 million. In the numbers we're using, which come from the city, we would say that that number is about $12 or $13 million. Clearly, there's a disconnect, so we need to get on the same page and have that same number. We have peer cities that we disagree are peer cities, so we need to, we've come up with a list, and you referenced a report that was done by Duncan, and I don't have a whole lot of trust in consultants, so I'd rather verify this ourselves, and I think we can do that with the city. And again, we've discussed a framework that would be two folks from the city and two folks from us, and we would literally spend the next, hopefully we can spend another, maybe 20 plus hours together in the next 30 days to get this resolved. But that's what I'm asking for today, and I think generally our commercial group is in support of that. So again, we've had a number of meetings. We've made some headway in the last week. Very much appreciate the council folks that met with us last week. I think it was a very meaningful dialogue. And so anyway, that's what I would ask today, is that you guys would consider that, and I think we could move on down the road if that would be agreeable.
One thing, Mark, have you selected your two representatives?
We have three that will pare down to two, and that's myself and Jeff Van Hoos and Jim Perrick. So it'll be two of those three.
All right. Jeff Van Hoos? Morning.
Good morning, Mayor, council members, staff. Thank you for this time.
I'll need your name and address.
Jeff Van Hoos, 11612 Old Mill Road. Our goal during all of our studies that we've been very, very active in the last 60 days was to find the real numbers, because that's what really matters when it comes to keeping Oklahoma City competitive among peer cities. We called a lot of cities and ran total permit cost for each city. And oddly enough, Fort Worth was the only one that has a transportation impact fee. I don't know why that surprised me, but it did surprise me. As it turns out, Fort Worth's impact fees are reasonable. The Texas law has a simple rule. The city cannot charge a developer more than the proportionate share of the actual traffic impact for each development. If in Fort Worth, they have two fee schedules. They have a fee schedule 1 and they have a fee schedule 2. If Fort Worth charged fee schedule 1, there would be a lawsuit filed against Fort Worth probably once a week. I have spent a fair amount of time studying Fort Worth transportation impact fees. I have contacted local experts, architects, developers, engineers, general contractors, lawyers. The first thing I was told, everything is negotiable when it comes to the Fort Worth transportation impact fee. It's flexible. The second thing I was informed was the Schedule 1 transportation impact fee is only there to make you feel good about what you end up paying, which is considerably less. It's pretty smart. When you first walk in the door to buy a permit in Fort Worth, they just automatically give you an 82% discount off of fee schedule 1. Not a bad deal. So you start off at 18% of fee schedule 1. Then you can take credits for simple things like giving the city a right-of-way for a future road widening. Or if you're building on a major roadway, like most of us do, there really aren't a lot of improvements. They give you a 50% credit off of, you're already at 9%, they give you another 50% credit. So there's just many credits. After you take the credits, you can go to the next category. It's called discounts. Just like credits, there are many discounts available. The obvious is a discount for creating new jobs or creating sales tax. So this really gets the transportation impact fee in Fort Worth from 18%, you can get it down to about 2%. And on a 100,000 square foot office building, you are now talking about a $16,000 impact fee, which is 16 cents a square foot. The process is complicated for some, so 3 Fort Worth law firms have become experts, and they will walk you through the entire process and cut the best deal possible with the planning staff. The process takes about 4 months. My experts studied the 2 projects that we sent all over the country, and they estimated, depending on which of the 26 districts in Fort Worth you were going to build in, it could be anywhere from 0 to 20 cents. A lot of times you end up not paying a traffic impact fee at all in Fort Worth. The negotiable transportation fee is probably the most interesting part because there are so many leases with big tenants, retail tenants, that do not allow impact fees, as discussed earlier today. This gives the city the flexibility to say, we want Cabela's, we want Bass Pro Shop, we want Topgolf, whatever it is you want. You have the flexibility to say, that's a lot of sales tax. Let's waive the traffic impact fee. I think that would be very, very good for the city. By the way, we have really enjoyed working with staff. I think we've come a long way. I think we're really almost there. I agree with Mr. Ruffin. We just need a little more time, and we can finalize that deal. The other thing that's really important is we had a senior analyst from the largest real estate company in the world take a look at this. And his statement was very simple. This is going to be detrimental to the city of Oklahoma City's development. It's going to shut down development. The surrounding cities are going to really enjoy if this passes, because they're going to enjoy a huge boom. There are other ways to raise this money in a more equitable and fair way. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Jeff. Gary Jones.
Good morning. Gary Jones, 5525 South Enchanter Drive, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. I am the Government Affairs Director for the Oklahoma City Metropolitan Association Realtors. And the reason I'm here is one to put us on record. First, I too want to thank the staff. They've done an unbelievable job as far as working with organizations like mine in an effort to provide information and also listen to concerns. And what really makes this really wonderful is that they've done everything they can in order to accommodate it. What I think is really great about your staff and what City Manager Couch should be excited about is that we're trying to find ways to facilitate a way to go forward with a win-win for everybody involved. And for that, we want to show our appreciation. As was stated by one of the previous speakers, Mr. Benning, who's also representing commercial realtors here in the Oklahoma City areas, the National Association of Realtors has a position that they're opposed to impact fees. They believe that there are other revenue sources that better represent how a community should support those developments than impact fees. We take no position one way or the other. As realtors in the Oklahoma City metropolitan area, our primary concern is to ensure that whatever is adopted concerning this ordinance does not adversely impact the ability to develop both residential and commercial real estate in the city. We believe, thanks to our membership with the Central Oklahoma Home Builders Association, that the changes that have been recommended and that staff have been working on to modify are the correct approach, and if those changes are adopted, you do have an ordinance, at least on the residential side, we believe does not do that. On the commercial side, there are some concerns about the fees that are currently being proposed. We're not going to stand here and say we're experts because we're not developers, but we do know from our research and from the information that Mr. Benning related to from the National Association of Realtors that there should be some concerns about what those fees are. I think, Councilman Greenwell, you're right on target, that we need to make sure we have the right data. But what we hope happens is that you will allow the process to be extended. I don't know if it needs to be 30 days, but needs to be extended so that there can be a flushing out of the information. Our hope is that there can be some reasonable agreement about the impact fees and we can move forward. The realtors in Oklahoma City, again, are only concerned about continuing the viability of the real estate industry in our city. And right now, we're very viable, and we don't want to see that hampered. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks, Gary. Jim Perrick.
Hello.
Morning.
Jim Perrick, 13729 Hillahay Drive. I appreciate your time this morning. One of the things the commercial group has been asked a couple of times during this process is to come up with a number for a fee that the industry can handle, that works, and which is very difficult. As you guys know, each commercial project is different. Each commercial developer has a different risk and return profile, which makes that problematic. When you increase cost to a project, there's really only two ways to recoup that money. One is to increase rents, which really isn't an option because market sets rents. Developers don't set rents, which means, in essence, that the developer pays it and reduces their return on a project. And so the best approach, we thought, was we got a pretty good cross-section of commercial developers in a room, looked at the peer data that Jeff was talking about, and really kind of talked through what numbers would work to a project that would that we thought we could live with as an industry. And so I think most of you have been given this information. It's been given to the city staff before, but I want to run through this real quick. Each of these pages represents a different fee structure that we've come up with for the different sectors. We did not change the residential. It is on top. All we did was update the square footage based on the new permit data, so it's the average of 2011 through 2014 permits. If you turn the page, and we're not going to go over these in great detail, I don't want to get lost in the numbers, but the industrial is the first one, and so we basically focused on new growth and said, okay, what can we do? What extra burden can these projects bear and not kill the projects? So we talked about that with a lot of developers, came up with a schedule there based on the size of the building. And the intent is obviously to come back and fill in the other categories. So this is new growth, then you would have infill, then you'd have the core, just like in the city's proposal. And so, and at the end of the day, we did that for each sector. We understand there's work to be done on this, and that's why we're proposing a 30-day extension, so we can kind of work through the final nuts and bolts of this. But this would, in essence, double the cost of the cost of getting a permit to the industry. Some of them are a little higher, some of them are a little lower. And then if you look at the last page, it gives you, based upon that average permit data for 2011 through 2014, the amount of money that could expect to be raised through the permit. So it'd be about $6.5 million, a little over that. So again, we wanted to provide that information since we'd been asked for it. And again, we would look forward to working with the city, hopefully in the next 30 days.
Can I ask Jim just one quick question? Jim, do I understand this, that you're suggesting that the residential revenue would generate about $5 million, and the combination of the industrial, the office, and the commercial would raise about $1.5 million, or about 25% of the residential?
That's correct.
Okay. Mark Livingston.
Good morning. Mark Livingston, Development Services, 1200 Northwest 63rd Street in Oklahoma City. Past president of the COBA, Central Oklahoma Home Builders Association. I just felt it was important that you got a little bit more information about the Home Builders Association and how we view these impact fees. It almost sounds like we carried the torch and wanted impact fees, which, you know, if we go to the National Association of Home Builders, they're against impact fees too. They got reports, they got studies, they're bad for us. You know, the individuals that buy our homes, it's a matter of qualifying for a mortgage. And as we all know, mortgages are tough to get. But what, over the last couple of years, we've been working with city and staff, we realize that in Oklahoma City, there is a need for the impact traffic. But we're not dealing just with impact fees on traffic. We also were dealing with parks and recreation and trails and other issues. So it looks like, you know, we just came up here and said, okay, we're great with the impact fees on traffic. The way it was presented to us, residential and commercial would share about 50-50 on impact fees for the traffic. That's not kind of how it looks like it's going this direction. It looks like somehow residential should be paying the lion's share, 75%, 80%. Well, we don't generate 80% of the traffic in Oklahoma City. You know, I live in Edmond, actually, and when I want to go shop, or I want to go out to eat dinner, or I want to go see a ball game, or I want to go play Top Golf or something else, I drive to Oklahoma City to do that. So it's not the residential that's causing that, it's the commercial, which is great. We need commercial. We need the tax dollars and everything else. So I just want to make the point is that we're willing to pay our fair share, but we're not willing to pay 80% of the impact fees on traffic. We don't think it's fair. We don't think it's right. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for coming down. All right, that's everybody that's signed up. Comments from council or questions from anyone that's spoken? All right, how about a motion?
I move to defer for 2 weeks.
Hold on just a second. Yeah, this is just a public hearing today. So when is the final hearing set for? Next week? All right, so currently scheduled, we have a final hearing scheduled for next week. Yeah, Larry?
So help me out if you would, Mayor. If I thought that the time to take the final vote next week was too soon, is this the time to offer that kind of a suggestion?
Yeah, I think you can. If you believe that today, then you can have it, ask it for it to be deferred, yeah.
But we're asking to be deferred the final hearing, which is now set for next week.
That's correct.
Okay, then I'd like to offer a motion to move the final hearing from next week to 30 days out.
All right, and obviously we don't meet 30 days out, so.
That would be May 3rd.
And that would that be Would that be 5 weeks from today? 5 weeks from today?
It could be 4 weeks. That'd be April 26th.
Okay.
Budget time, was either one of those conflict with our budget?
No.
Okay.
4 weeks, though.
Okay.
I'd like to move this forward.
Well, I'm seconded it with the understanding that something's going to happen in the next 4 weeks, that we're not going to be this, don't tax you, don't tax me, tax the guy behind the tree theory. All these, that ain't going to work. That's not going to work. We have a legislature in Oklahoma that is not going to permit us to raise additional taxes. We can't do it. We have to do it internally. And you can't do it internally with the restraints that we have now. So this is not something that we just came up with to avoid asking the people to tax themselves. Our ability to do that is so limited. You know, we talked about Fort Worth. Well, Fort Worth has much higher ad valorem taxes, and that ad valorem tax is shared with the city of Fort Worth for operational purposes. Probably double what we have. So, you can't just go to Fort Worth and ask them what they charge and make that a fair comparison. There's so much more to it than that. But this has been going on for 2 years. If we can do something in 4 weeks, I'm all in on it because it's time to move it forward. That's why I seconded the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other comments or questions before we vote?
When is the hearing date now? What's it going to be effectively moved?
April 26th.
Okay.
That'll be the final hearing? Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. Cast your votes on the deferral. Deferral passes 7-1. All right, we're on to item 9E.
We're ready for B and C.
Oh, we have the information now? Okay, good.
Mayor, we're going to need the emergency
On 9A?
on, no, 9B2
Nine-
and 9C2.
All right.
Carry the
We're back to item 9B1, and this is to the award the purchase of bonds, and apparently there's been a sale.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, how'd we do?
Did very well, had an excellent sale. We do have 2 items on. The first item is, there are items B1 and 2 are the ordinance and award for the GO bonds, and that's the tax exempt bonds for the infrastructure improvements, and that's $77.5 million. The second item is C1 and 2, or the second set of items is C1 and 2, and that is for our general obligation limited tax bonds, and those are the bonds that we're using for economic development purposes. Had an excellent bond sale. I'll talk first about the general obligation bonds. We're in the process of handing out both documents, the documents for both items on each set. On the general obligation bonds, we had 8 proposers. The winner of the bid was Piper Jaffray with a rate of 2.492626. And if you look on the second page of your item there, it'll show you the comparisons. The highest bid that we received was 2.599. So that is the lowest bid that we've received, at least in my term with the city and the time I've been with the city. It's the lowest bid we received. Last year's bid had been the previous low at 2.66%. So it's an excellent bid. Having 8 proposers is an excellent competition for us, and having the bid so tightly covered. So the second bid you saw was with Bank of America Merrill Lynch, and that was 2.945, and so very close bid, and so excellent bond sale. On the general obligation limited tax bonds, we had a similar experience, actually had 6 proposers. The winner of the bid on the GOLT bonds is Robert W. Baird and Company, and with a bid of 2.95436. And again, received 6 bids, and this is also the lowest bid that we've received on our taxable bonds. So excellent bond sale, excellent rates, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Well, congratulations.
Excellent.
We appreciate it. Is there a motion then on 9B1 to award the purchase? Second. All right, cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Item 9B2 is the emergency. Okay.
Move the ordinance first.
That's right, move the ordinance first. We have a motion and a second, so cast your votes on 9B2. Passes unanimously. Now, is there a motion on the emergency? Okay, cast your votes, and the emergency passes 8-0. And then 9C is the GOLT portion of the bonds. Is there a motion? All right, cast your votes. It passes unanimously. And then item 9C2 is the ordinance for the issuing of the bonds on the GOLT. Is there a motion? Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Do we need the emergency, Francis? All right, we're now voting on the emergency on 9C2, and it passes 8-0.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. I did want to recognize, too, the work of our staff and the support that we have from our bond counsel and our financial advisors. Ken Sudel is our assistant finance director, and he leads our bond program and our debt program for the city. Mike Baskin is working with us now as our debt manager. Our financial advisors are Dennis Whaley and Jennifer Arndt with PFM, and appreciate their work. And then our bond counsel, Gary Bush with the Public Finance Group, and then John Williams in the room here with us with Williams, Box, Forsey, and Bullard. And I really appreciate everyone coming together as a team. This really is a reflection, I think, of the confidence that investors have in your leadership of this city, and appreciate all the work that you all do to help us with this.
All right, thank you. All right, item 9E, this is a little bit of housekeeping. Has to do with the exams to establish a second lieutenant promotional list from the FOP. Is there a motion? Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Item 9F, I understand we do need executive session on that item?
We do.
Okay, is there a motion to move 9F into executive session? Cast your votes. It passes unanimously. Item 9G is claims recommended for denial. All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there anyone here hoping to speak under any item listed under 9G? All right, cast your votes. It passes unanimously. Item 10A is claims recommended for approval. Is there anyone here hoping to speak under any of these items? All right, how about a motion on 10A? All right, cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Item 11A has been deferred until April 5th. And item 11B is an ordinance that's being introduced today, sponsored by Councilman White. And I think that's why Aubrey is sitting on the front row.
It's kind of a simple thing. You know, in the rural area, a lot of people like those big arched, "This is Pete's Ranch" sign above their driveway. And the way the city ordinance is written was written a long time ago, and it was written for more urban design, and they prevent that from happening. And so this ordinance just permits that, really. Is that?
That's correct. It would be for lots an acre or larger.
Just, everybody wants to have a little South Fork out where I live. They want to let everybody know they got it.
And would it matter how it's zoned? Would it matter how it's zoned?
How it's zoned?
Yeah, do it have to be agriculture?
Is it double A?
Well, it
could
be zoned residential, but it'd have to have at least an acre.
Okay.
So,
May I ask a question about that? Because I believe one of my sons lives in a neighborhood and they have acre lots. That's a traditional neighborhood. Granted, their lots are bigger than most. But still, that would look strange for, what I'm asking for, should we say acre, should we say 2 acres or something? Or I guess, does the homeowners association override this if the homeowners association says you can't?
that would be a civil matter if there's a homeowners association covenant about it.
The people that I deal with that are concerned about this, 1 acre, 2 acres, 5 acres probably wouldn't make any difference. I mean, there are people that live on 20 acres, but,
yeah.
No,
I understand.
We could change it to 5, and that would, because I suspect there are some on 5-acre tracts. I'm really looking to do it more in the rural area. If it's going to be done, somebody's going to do an arched entryway in the urban part of the city, then that ought to be done with an exception or something that might be granted through the zoning process.
Yeah, I think 5 may be more appropriate as far as the minimum size.
How big can the Pete's Ranch sign be?
What?
How big can the sign be? Can it have lights on it?
I don't know.
Yeah, can you have electrical signs?
It would have to be smaller than one that would have to be identified as a, from the air, I mean, to impede with air traffic. It would have to be smaller. But other than that, you know, I tell you, you can drive around out where I live, and I suspect you can go into rural areas of John's area and Larry's area, and you'll find residents that already have an archway above their property. And how they got them, I don't know. People that called me couldn't get one, and so that's why it's here. But I'm just trying to make it simpler for, it's not a big deal.
Well,
I'm opposed to it anyway. I'm just suggesting that maybe we think in terms of the 5 acres.
You know, I will accept an amendment.
Well, it's just being introduced today, and the final hearing will be set up for April 19th,
Right.
so we can all ponder that.
But Bob and I worked together, and I said, this is what I want, and this is what he came up with. I haven't got into the nitty-gritty about it. It's okay. And it went through the Planning Commission without a ripple, and so that's all I know about it.
Okay, well, we got 3 weeks to fine tune it. All right, is there a motion then? Pete's making a motion. Is there a second on this item? All right, cast your votes. Item being introduced today, public hearing April 12th, and a final hearing set for April 19th. City manager reports. Oh, yeah, items from council. Mark, you have anything else? All right, John? David? Pete? Larry? James? All right. City manager reports.
Thank you. You know, abandoned housing has been an issue for council for a number of years, and we've made some modifications within the last year or two, the little that we can do under state law. And based upon that, Bob Keener is here to give us a bit of an update on that this morning.
Morning. I'd just like to give a brief presentation on the abandoned building program. It's been a year, it was a year in February that we started it. I want to tell you the purpose. This is our LFR purpose. Purpose of the abandoned building program is to provide exterior property maintenance inspections and abandoned building reviews for the community and property owners so they can live in a more attractive and safe neighborhood. This program, if you remember, we said was going to be a proactive program that would be citywide. Through February, we have, the council has declared 494 properties as abandoned. If you remember, whenever you have to declare a property either unsecured or dilapidated before it can go on this list. This chart just gives you, just kind of shows you that it is clearly citywide. We have abandoned buildings in every ward. And we've had 23 removed since we started the program. One thing about the ones that are removed, we require them to pay any costs or that have been occurred. So that's one opportunity we have there. The next slide, that's just some examples of some abandoned buildings. You see these every Tuesday on the dilapidated and unsecured list. The next one is, this is really our process. Our inspectors do this on a proactive process in the neighborhoods. When they identify a problem, they identify the problem, they take pictures, they fill out a form, and they provide that form to the property owner. They're given a 30-day notice, and then after 30 days, our inspectors will follow up. If the violation's been corrected, they close the case. If there's progress, then they take additional pictures and give a 30-day extension. The difference here is that if there's no progress, the inspector will write a citation or begin the citation process. You know, it's really important for us, and maybe the next slide here probably. One of the things I want to show you here is that before the program started, we were doing about 120, and those were reactive from Action Center complaints. Since the program, we average almost 500 inspections and notices given in neighborhoods throughout Oklahoma City. And the proactive effort here provides those neighbors the opportunity to resolve those problems before it gets to the citation. And, you know, anytime you've got a property that next to you that's got some kind of issue with maintenance, you know, it's going to potentially impact the value of your property. And so this next slide shows we have over 56% owner abate after we've given them a notice. And so that's an increase of almost 300% from where we were a year ago. And I think the important thing here is to show you that this is over 200 properties a month. People are fixing their properties where they weren't doing that before. And to me, that's a good indication that the program's probably working. The next slide, that's just a before and after. That checklist on the right, that kind of shows you what we do. We provide that property owner a copy of that checklist so they know what they need to do to get into compliance. And then the inspector brings it back out when they follow up, and they can just check it off the list. Here's just a couple of another example of before and after. And this is the fine collections. This is just really to show you a trend that you know, the fines that we have to write, or the citations we have to write, that number's going up. We don't really like to write citations, but when property owners won't take care of their property, we need some kind of mechanism where we can try to get their attention. And so this just shows that it's trending up as you know, as we're getting out in the neighborhoods more. This next one, another thing that came up when the program was started, we have the ability now to bill for public safety calls. Of those 495 abandoned buildings, we've had 154 calls. Now, the collection number is pretty low, and the program's kind of new. It's just been a year. If they don't pay when they're billed, then we can file a lien, which will run with the property. You know, we feel like eventually, as properties change hands, you know, we'll start collecting some of this. But this part of it is a little bit of a challenge for us. And for the next slide.
Can I ask you a question about that? Do we have the ability to foreclose on those liens that we file?
Yes, we do. We could foreclose on the liens. We can't do it through the county treasurer's office like we can dilapidated unsecured, but we have to file a lawsuit in district court, and so then we have to go through that lien foreclosure process, which would end up in a sheriff's sale, but we can do that. So
just how long does the lien have to, or how long does it have to be unpaid before you can do that?
There's a process in there. I believe they have an X days to pay. The owner has a certain number of days to pay. Do you know, Bob, off the top of your head? I think 30 days possibly.
Right. We bill quarterly, and then they're given 30 days to pay.
Okay.
Right.
I'd like just at some future council meeting to come back with some plan to do that, because they could either be acquired by the city for the amount of the lien, or they could be sold and to somebody that would start paying the taxes and the costs of developing them, redeveloping them.
Right. The only complication you get is if the city is the only bidder at the sheriff's sale, then we get the property, then we can, of course, sell it to someone else, but we would have the.
But I just think we ought to move it down the road. So many of them properties are located in places where redevelopment would occur now that it's cleaned off if you get rid of the original owner.
Yeah, it's just a matter of deciding we want to do that, and then we can get with Bob and bring resolutions to council to authorize us to foreclose.
That's the kind of thing you might even be able to farm the work out. I mean, we might not want to do all that internally, but we could contract it out.
We could do some of it. We could set it up and do some of it to begin with. And
well, I'm not suggesting we farm it out. I'm just saying it certainly would. It's the kind of work that would be amenable to farming it out to somebody else if we don't have the horsepower inside to do it.
I think it's a good idea as long as the dollars, the numbers work.
Right.
If you've got a $20 lien,
Right.
And you spend $700 in attorney's fees, that didn't make sense. But if the numbers work, I think it's a great idea because it gets new ownership, and like you say, it fixes the property, hopefully.
Bob or Kenny, do we accrue interest on these liens until they're paid?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think so.
I honestly don't know. I'd have to see what the statute says, and also you might be able to get prejudgment interest potentially.
Okay, and then any additional costs such as outside attorneys or anything else we could recover too as well?
Possibly.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd need to look at each issue on that.
I mean, there is a prejudgment interest statute, and there is a lien statute that provides for attorney's fees, and we just have to look at it, but I think that would be an option.
So, Pete, are you suggesting that we might develop a policy that says, you know, within 6 months after a lien has been filed on these abandoned properties, if no efforts by the owner has been made, we can then begin foreclosure proceedings and just kind of get it set in writing?
I just think we got to look at it. Again, Mark makes an excellent point. I mean, the amount of the lien is going to drive the whole thing.
Oh, sure.
If it's not, there's no financial incentive to do it, we shouldn't be doing it, and we shouldn't be and we wouldn't be able to farm it out.
And a lot of times, the liens will go up because we're adding to the cost as we go forward, as long as it's on the abandoned building list.
And the funds could be routed back to the entity that's doing it. It's operating at a pretty substantial loss now, I would imagine. Those funds could just be plowed back into that process.
I don't have a comment about where those funds would go.
All right.
But yeah, we'll work with Kenny and talk about it. And as on this slide, I mean, that's clearly a challenge for the program to try to recover those costs. The other challenge we have is the escalation of fines. If you remember, we amended the ordinance that allowed the first fine was 100, second offense was 250, third offense was 500. And I've been working with Cindy in the municipal counselor's office about how we can maybe streamline the program to maybe get to some of the escalating fine issues. And I'll talk about this in the next one. It's really an opportunity for the program. On the next slide, go back one, sorry, is to streamline the citation program. She has some ideas about how we can maybe make that more efficient in the process. And then the Abandoned Building Coalition, it was a group of the planning department and property owners, and Councilman McAtee was involved, my department was involved, and they just tried to find some solutions. They prepared a report, or they're finalizing a report. And the streamlining the citations process is one of the recommendations that will come out of that report. So, entertain any additional questions.
All right, looks like you're good to go, Bob. Okay. Anything else, Jim?
That's it, sir.
All right, well, we have executive session. We'll be back. Oh, I'm sorry. Joe Sarge is here. Joe almost skipped you.
Joe Sars Nelson, I don't think you want me in that executive session. Okay, I owe the council an apology in a roundabout way that I've come here the last 3 or 4 weeks and making some remarks, and this and that, what have you. I still believe in the remarks. I think my tactics have been wrong, and bringing it to the body one time strong enough is sufficient. And I spoke to a couple of people today, and like I've said in the past, I will honor my word. I won't badger this people, but I also, when I made that statement, I made it very clear, unless I felt somebody crossed the line, that would change my tactic. I still feel that way, but I think my tactical approach has to be changed. And bringing it here every Tuesday is not the way to do it. So I'll apologize to you all that, but I will follow through with my convictions. And I wish Ms. Sider had been here to heard that I will not pound on her and her doing her job here. But I will follow through with my convictions in the proper legal manner. If that sustains with everybody, okay. And I appreciate it. Y'all look sharp. You do a good job. but try to look from my point of view too. I like to think I do mine pretty well too. Being a former investigator, I come across things, sometimes I'm wrong. In fact, I'd say 50% of the time I am. But boy, that other 50 cents a whopper. But anyway, Mayor, everybody, have a nice day.
All right. Thanks, Joe. All right, we have executive session. We'll be back.